And good morning and welcome to a very special Remembrance Day broadcast. This morning I'm joined by Michael Williamson and I'm Michael Short, and we are here to honor the men and women who have served and continue to serve in the Canadian Armed Forces. Michael, good morning, and looks like we got a rather pleasant day, a bit blustery, but just a super turnout so far.
Yes, good morning, Mike. It's a solemn honor to be here today as we honor the veterans of Canada's world wars and pay special tribute to all the actions that led up to today.
What is it about Remembrance Day that kind of pulls at your memories and your thoughts around this special day?
Well, as you know, we're not a very militarized country, and events like this give us time to pause and think about the sacrifices that our men and women have made in World War I, World War II, the Korean War, service in Afghanistan, to protect and provide us the kind of democracy and the lifestyle that we enjoy.
Of course, as we continue moving forward with these Remembrance Days, we continue to see fewer and fewer World War II vets, Korean vets. I think at last count we're probably just under 9,000 survivors from World War II. And I guess it just really emphasizes the importance of this day. And as you look behind us, we can see some young cadets out there, having them involved and to continue on with that memory and I guess paying tribute.
Absolutely. My own father went to World War II when he was 15 years old and served in the military a further 40 years. I lost him 2 years ago. And Peter Godwin Chance, a World War II vet from right here in Sidney, passed away in April of this year. And it's especially important to pass the baton to the younger generations so that they don't forget the sacrifices that our veterans made.
When you look at, I guess, the ceremony itself, Michael, it lots of components of it that are very special, and I guess the big one is the 2 minutes of silence. When you look at that, what are you thinking about?
So the 2 minutes of silence is notable in a lot of events and very solemn occasions. It's 1 minute of silence, and at the end of World War II, World War I, 11th hour, 11th day, 11th month, it was recognized with 2 minutes of silence. The guns fell silent, and we've carried that tradition on. It's a long period of time for some, and it can be a little bit uncomfortable, but it really puts a solid point on what the event is all about.
There's certainly a lot of stories out here as we look at the veterans and those folks that have come out to celebrate this day. Talk a little bit about your own journey in the military. You're part of Canada's oldest service in the Navy.
Indeed, I joined when I was 18 and served in Royal Canadian Navy, what's now Royal Canadian Navy now. Back then it was Canadian Forces, Maritime Forces. I was a submarine officer, I was a combat systems engineer, and I finished my career as base commander at CFB Esquimalt, a very storied and relevant part of the Canadian Forces. And it gives me a little bit more insight, but it's events like this that help the general population understand a little bit about what it is as well. I would encourage people to walk up and talk to those in uniform, particularly with medals that have demonstrated a lot of service. So we have a fly past here.
Outstanding. Some vintage World War II trainers just came overhead, and a real nice touch. And I think we're actually going to be seeing a helicopter from Pat Bay, which represents the maritime aviation arm.
Absolutely. Naval Air Service help the ships and the destroyers in anti-submarine warfare, search and rescue, targeting, and a number of events like that.
Well, we're just going to pick up the Masters of Ceremonies here for a second. And we are back here at the broadcast booth, and of course there's going to be a parade of veterans coming down through the main street of Sidney, and to gather in front of the Cenotaph, where there will be some speeches and of course the laying of the wreaths. You know, Michael, I want to go back to sort of the role that Pat Bay and Esquimalt played, and the airport back in the day during the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan. This was a very busy, I think the third largest in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. I can probably speak a little bit more knowledgeably about Canadian Forces based Esquimalt. It started as Naden. It was named after a depot ship that was commissioned in 1860. And Esquimalt, the vessel, was named after the township of Esquimalt. And it was a minesweeper that was unfortunately sunk in 1945. It was the last Canadian warship sunk in action, and named after the township of Esquimalt. And of course, CFB Esquimalt serves as a support base for Canada's Pacific Fleet, and along with the Naval Air Branch that you just spoke about, provides service to citizens on the west coast of Canada and deployments into the Pacific and further afield.
When you were the base commander, how large of a base was it in terms of personnel?
Yeah, it's about 12,000 acres, and it has locations and installations all across Vancouver Island, out to Haida Gwaii, over to Mascouy and Abbotsford. We had about 5,000 personnel, civilian and military, a number of frigates. There's now Arctic offshore patrol vessels, and the submarine service is primarily based here for maintenance. It's an awesome location, and of course the soldiers and sailors and airmen and women that are serving there are integrated into all of our communities.
One of the other things that Esquimalt serves as is a search and rescue center, and that's a service that the military has provided for many years, and an important one, especially out here on the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, the Pacific's a really big, rough body of water, and with the basing of CFB Esquimalt and the air base here in the airport here in Sidney, and then of course Comox serves as 3 points to help deploy forces when they're needed in times of urgency.
We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the role that the Army, Navy, Air Force Association and the Royal Canadian Legion play in helping to keep the memory and the work that veterans continue to do across Canada. And I think especially the Legion has had a tough time as of late to keep members, and even you look at a number of them today, and there's a lot of Legion members who never even served in the forces that are still stepping up and providing another type of service, Michael.
And I think that's important. The Army, Navy, Air Force Veterans Organization has about 18,000 members in Canada, and the Legion probably about the same number. And again, I talked about passing the baton, and it's a transition between those that have served and veterans and bringing younger people into it. And it's not just about recreation, it's also about service to members and providing a home for veterans to go to for some socialization. And again, it's dispersed into many communities in Canada, and it helps to get that message out. If you're in a part of the prairies or Ontario where there's not a strong military presence, it helps serve as a point around which people can have conversations and understand the important role that the military plays in protecting our democracy.
We talked about the cadets, and it is I guess in a gentle way, a pathway to military service. I know that I went through Army cadets when I was 14. It was a bit of an indoctrination into what one could expect, and it does play such an important role in an organization to raise up young Canadians, not only in a military awareness, but also just being part of the community.
Absolutely. Activities like cadets, but also other activities like scouts or even organized sports and playing on teams to learn organization, to learn hierarchy, to learn discipline on a very solid path to more maturity and just better outcomes in life.
Well, we are here to remember, of course, those before us, and we have a rather unique perspective of an individual who served in the Second World War. I'm talking about Lieutenant Colonel, who was a member of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment. Walter, sorry, my producer just yelled at me, and we have a very special presentation about what he saw during his time in Europe. Wait a moment. Oh, there we go. Come back to us. All right. Well, we, I guess, of airmen and sailors that were killed over the action. And you got to go back. I think a lot of Canadians forget that we fought in the Boer War. We lost 280 men in that conflict. Over 66,000 killed in the Second World War, 45,000 killed in the First World War, the Korean War, Canadians. And then the peacekeepers, 122 and 58 during the war in Afghanistan, and one individual killed in the battle with ISIS. And I guess the sad takeaway from this is that as much as we're out here today to talk about peace and a way forward, wars seem to be inevitable.
Absolutely. There's going to be disagreements and there's going to be differences of opinion, and unfortunately sometimes these differences of opinions are solved with about our fallen members. It underpins how big our contribution has been throughout, and this is one thing many Canadian citizens don't know. At the end of World War II, Canada had the third largest Allied Navy, and right now it's a shadow of itself, and the government will be looking at bolstering that, but we've had a very, very proud technical innovations as well that helped us do our job better and indeed protect our soldiers. Touched every community in Canada. And I'd like to take a moment to speak about our Indigenous communities that have participated as well. Some 3,000 or 4,000 in World War I, 3,000 or 4,000 in World War II, and our Aboriginal veterans and members of Army, Navy, and Air Force from our Aboriginal. Tremendous hurdles contributing to Canada. They came from remote communities. They had to be aligned to not only military culture, but culture of communities they weren't familiar with. And I read a very interesting fact or statistic. We've always heard about the code talkers of the Navajo in World War II. Well, Canada had its own code and were able to communicate such that the enemy forces couldn't understand what they were saying. So, as all of our communities, both settlers and Indigenous communities, and we should be solemnly proud of this, and today is all about recognizing that.
I guess, I don't know if there is sort of outcome to a war, but there is such a sense of everybody coming together in times of crisis and wanting to do their part to serve.
And it's called Remembrance Day because we don't want to forget that.
Absolutely. Well, we've got the bands coming in, so we're going to take a moment and listen to the parade coming to form up on the Cenotaph.
wish to join the parade are asked to join the Old Guard platoon.
On that first team, the bells of the world, they pealed and they proclaimed the end of a catastrophe, and they proclaimed the end of a catastrophe and the dawning of a new hope for humanity, and a new hope for humanity. And on this solemn day, we too will hear bell intonations. These rings are married to the names of those fallen who not only fished in these blue ocean waters or farmed our peninsula or walked the gritty streets of this village, but they also humbly carried within them that same hope which rang out, a hope that was shared with their sovereign and shared with an entire nation. And born out of the experiences of that great war, this year we also commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force and those who carried that same hope through the skies as they slid the surely bond of earth to the high, untrespassed sanctity of space. Now, though we gather at this hour as an act of remembering and communal gratitude, we nevertheless are also called by that same hope, the hope of our ancestors and ages past. Today, even as our own nation and our world face unprecedented challenges, I invite you to hear within these names and within this sacred silence that same hope, the call of hope for our time and for our future.
It is not wealth or of ancestry, but honorable conduct and a noble disposition that make men great. Today, we remember the fallen who made the ultimate sacrifice for the preservation of peace and freedom. As we remember our fallen heroes, we also honor our veterans, servicemen and women, first responders, and our healthcare professionals. Today is also a day of mourning as we remember the peace officers who gave their lives in service to our nation. They answered the call to serve, a call that outweighed any threat of danger or risk of death. Thank you for your sacrifice. These are the names of our fallen heroes from World War I. W.J. Apps, James Arden, H.H. Bedford, V. Cleves, C.J. Coward, G.C. Cruz, Arnold Dean, H.A. Dennis, C. H. Granger, T. Holiday, T. Iverson, F.C. John, W.S.J. Late, John McNally, L.H. Norris, I. Robertson, C.F. Stutchbury, C. Toogood, F. Toogood, Wilkinson. These are the names of our fallen heroes from World War II. J. V. G. Buckle, J. F. Bean, F. Carter, A. B. C. Chapman, W. Devison, R. Frame, T. Golding, A. N. Gott, V. H. Graham, W. J. Gunn, E. H. Harcourt, L. Heel, A. Hunter, S. Jackson, P. R. B. Littlewood, M. Littlewood, J. T. Livingston, R. Maynard, C. Nelson, C. Pearson, A. J. Pinhorn, V. L. Reed, W. Simpson, E. Skinner, J. Slater, H. G. Smith, S. Stanley, E. J. Sturrock, R. Thompson, B. Underwood, lest we forget.
At the call of sovereign and country, they left all that was dear to them, endured hardship, faced danger, and finally passed out of sight of men by the path of duty and self-sacrifice, giving up their own lives that others might live in freedom. Let those that come after see to it that their names be not forgotten.
sun, and in the morning. We will remember them.
Past President Kathy McGinnity of the Army, Navy, Air Force Veterans Unit 302 will recite in Flanders Fields. Cadet Petty Officer First Class Stinger and Cadet Petty Officer Second Class Moss will
as we were young.
They served, giving freely of themselves.
To them we pledge, amid the winds of time,
To carry your torch and never forget.
we will remember them. We are assembled now as a community with diversities of culture and history, of ethnicity and faith, and yet we are bound together in a common hope as a nation. Respecting each of our own personal beliefs and consciences, I now invite you to join me and one another for a moment of prayer or reflection, that in heart and in mind our common intentions may be united for our home, strong and free. Hope that inspires us, hope that guides us forward, hope that calls us, and hope that works through us. Offering up their most sacred gift, their own blood and breath, those fallen named today, and their comrades, spanning generations, carried an undying, universal hope for human flourishing and a more loving world that includes peace and security and freedom and dignity and respect and justice, and for the globe's nations to chart their own destiny. Now, though they did not return home, it was their hope that emerged out of darkness and is present with us now. Hope marched into the trenches with frightened soldiers, and yet what arose from their efforts were free people. Through 100 years, many of our aviators were lost to the heavens, yet hope soared through the clouds embedded in these brave ones. And hope, it sailed upon the sea with our mariners. And though many souls were lost, their ship's bells still ring hope in our ears. Now, despite the outcomes and the setbacks, hope is that persistent, and it is a crucial inspiration which never shirks at evil, but is an insistent response to it. Those remembered confirm what ancients have penned, that suffering produces an endurance. Endurance produces a character, and character produces a hope, and it is that hope that does not disappoint us. In life and in death, they answered the call of hope, and their hope now calls on us. With each name and toll of that bell, we hear their voices calling to each of us. Gather your hearts, attend your minds, awaken your souls to something that is beyond and greater than self. That something which has made us undaunted even to the final sacrifice. Build your future upon our endeavors and truths for which we died. Be in harmony with our hope, and let this internal drive so propel and encourage you for your days that are ahead. For even though we may die, our hope will not, for it lives in you. And we who stand here today are the living legacy of their hope. May the same hope wash over all of those places on our good earth that are plagued with war, so that all lives, especially the innocent, may not suffer, and peace be finally established. May the resounding ring of hope bring comfort to we who are veterans, and secure a healing of our minds and hearts and bodies, and may that foundational legacy that we have left be cherished and attain full maturity for the generations that are yet to come. And may we who the call of hope and stand at the ready in reserve and regular service, protected at home, and abroad, and especially if called into the fray of oppression. While the nation works and sleeps and plays in peace, we are the sentinels that are called to defend these coasts, this sky, and this land. May we be endowed with courage and may our loved ones at home be guarded in their daily ways, and our reunion be healthy and joyous. May we, who are domestic peacemakers in protecting property and rule of law, be enriched by and may we be preserved in safety and valor, so that our communities might live in contentment and quiet. Under the banner of our sovereign and our commonwealth of civilians, hear and be enveloped by that same ring of hope, the hope of our ancestors, and may it transform our nation toward unity and peace, human dignity, justice, democracy in our time and place. Here rests the intentions of our hearts.
Now we have some requests for whole life wreaths. Our reading is closed. Please wait your turn in line. Now to speak. LFRC Esquimalt Family Resources, Navy League of Canada, RCSCC Admiral Budge Cadets, and LCC Admiral Martin Cadets, RCACS Kitty Hawk Cadets, Air Cadets, Royal Canadian Maritime Search and Rescue, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, British Columbia Ferries, Sovereign Order of St. John, Sidney Volunteer Fire Department, North Saanich Volunteer Fire Department, School District 63, First Starfleet Sydney Cadets, Girl Guides of Canada Peninsula Shores District, Sydney by the Sea Rotary Club, Sydney Rotary Club, Knights of Columbus Council 9703, Provost Club of Saanich Peninsula, Sydney Lions Club, Saanich Peninsula Presbyterian Church, Conservative Party of Canada, CFUV, Mary Winspear Centre and Saanich Peninsula Memorial Park Society, Mount Newton Centre, Holy Trinity Anglican Church, Beacon Community Services, Victoria Airport Authority, Runway Dental, some of the wreaths were laid by Legion staff at the request of the donors. While the wreaths are being laid, Rachel will sing, I vow to thee, my country.
Service
As we leave this sacred place, let hope nourish this nation. Let hope flourish in us as a people. Let hope bring us solace in times of anguish, direction in times of uncertainty, courage in times of fear. Let hope spread from one heart to another so that it renews and inspires and guides and harmonizes and it calls and it works through us.
Please join with Rachel in singing the royal anthem.
God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble King. God save the King. Certain victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the King.
Please clear the way for the parade to march around the block. Please remain here until the parade returns to the march.
Well, it has been just an amazing ceremony. Michael, I don't know about you, but I've been going to Remembrance Day celebrations across Canada over the years and even overseas. One I did in Cyprus. And I got to say that this one really has a sense of community about it. And I don't know, just to look at the crowd here, it's really special.
Yes, it was a solemn event, but as you say, there was a great sense of community participation. My overseas Remembrance Day ceremonies were in a town in northern England called Barrow-in-Furness in my submarine acquisition days. And looking around at the crowd here and the participation, as you say, there's people from all walks of life, all sizes, all ages, a few pets, the fly past by the Air Force and the World War II planes. It's been quite an event.
A nice surprise to see 443 out here with the CH-148 Cyclone, the new big heavy lift capability helicopters, and then the I think there was one, maybe two Harvard trainers in there. Of course, again, a throwback to the Commonwealth Air Training days. Michael, I wanted to I guess these celebrations, as I said off the top, are taking place right across Canada and in these smaller communities. And it really struck me about the sacrifice made by Sidney, the reading of the names. I think that was one of the most poignant moments of this Remembrance Day.
Absolutely, and it highlights the fact, as we talked about earlier, that veterans and serving men and women come from all walks of life, all parts of Canada, all parts of ethnicity and origin. And it's a bit of a bringing together. I noticed during the wreath laying that two of the provincial candidates from different parties greeted each other with a handshake, and it's an opportunity for folks to come together, remembering something very important, but perhaps celebrating a brighter future.
Yeah, it's kind of a an interesting dynamic when we talk about politics and we talk about the Remembrance Day, as you mentioned. Times are tough in the Canadian military. We jokingly said back in the day that we were rapidly preparing for World War II when we were looking at trying to get equipment in the Air Force at that time. It just seemed to be a real slow grind. And you're in a service where even today we're still struggling with our submarine capabilities.
Absolutely. The submarine, well, I can't speak about it. I spent too much time doing it, and we'll have to see what direction Canadian politics takes us, and the response to a still present international threat and the need to protect Canadians at home and abroad, and more importantly, a very important need to contribute to NATO. And I think we're going to see increased pressure after January, where we're going to have to be stepping up to the plate and making more contribution. And that extra contribution doesn't come from the men and women in uniform. It'll come from our government and the politicians to recognize the need and to spend a few more dollars and make a stronger commitment.
Absolutely. Folks, if you're looking at your screen right now, of course you're looking at a bit of an empty street, but the parade has just done a march going in and around City Hall, and they'll come back in front of the Cenotaph, and that would basically signal the end of our ceremony here today. Michael, talking about acquisition and equipment, of course Canada during the Second World War and even through the 50s had an aircraft carrier, and that's something a lot of folks, I think, kind of scratched their head about. The Bonaventure, of course, was synonymous with the Canadian Navy.
I've been on the Bonnie. My dad served as the gunnery officer, and somewhere in my crawl space I have photos of, I think the whole number was 22. And it was one of the advances at the time. It was an us to operate. At the time, I remember trackers and I think Banshees. Banshees flew off it, so an adventure. And before that was the Puncher and the Nabob. So we had a very strong naval presence and a lot of innovations too. Things like the bear trap for the Hilo haul down, Canadian innovation. A lot of it just from A to Z.
And of course, and the fact that we lost it, and we look to, you alluded to NATO and maybe more pressures worldwide on our fourth looming big is northern sovereignty, and that is, and again, I think that comes back to your service, the role in the Arctic.
Well, a northern sovereign. In fact, we took HMCS Okanagan, a submarine, up and under ice with one of the first Canadian submarines to do it. And there's a lot. We have to replace our submarines, we have to replace our destroyers, we have to get F-35s, if that's the choice, onto plate, fixed wing search and rescue, the list goes on and on and on. But as we heard today, there will always be conflicts, and it's important that the men and women serving in uniform have the equipment to do the job professionally and with the least amount of risk.
Well, as we wait, the return of the parade is coming around the corner here. I'm just absolutely of this turnout with folks from the Sidney area, young, old, as you mentioned, the dog. It just absolutely floors me with the number of people that have come out today.
I made the same observation. They're filling the streets in all directions. And the crowd is still here in support of the final march past, and it's a pretty good testament that the community spirit in Sidney is strong.
Absolutely it is, and we have been absolutely thrilled to have brought you this broadcast from here in Sidney, and we're now seeing the march past come in all its glory. We've got cadets, we've got of course the veterans and Naval, Air Force. We've got Pat Bay here. It's a real good turnout of various military entities. I guess kind of Army's missing though, right? I haven't seen anyone from the land force here.
No, that's a good observation, but of course the band is playing Maple Leaf Forever, and it's sort of with solemn pride that we see the forces here marching, and the veterans and the youth. Victoria had a pretty strong army presence with Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry at Work Point, and of course as units of the Canadian Forces get restructured, they get rebased, but we had quite a very strong army presence here at one time. Senior service going back, the Navy going by.
Getting a nice round of applause and appreciation from the folks that have gathered here to watch this ceremony. And there's nothing more rousing than those bagpipes, believe me, Michael.
Well, you said about the weather gods holding off. We had quite a gusty gale force at the start, but it's calmed right down and clearing up, and a little bit unusual for Remembrance Days. Usually it's wet.
We should maybe point out the fact that the general salute was taken by Lieutenant Colonel Matt Dukowski. He's the commanding officer of 443 Squadron, and by veterans Frank Hulbolt and Don Heinz. And I'm sure a big thrill for those two veterans as well. And it looks like that the end of the parade, and I think it'll bring an end to our broadcast. Michael, thank you so much for being here and sharing your stories and your insight, valuable one, into the Canadian Forces and the Remembrance Day celebration.
Well, thank you for hosting the show. I did a great job of bringing our listening and viewing audience right into the event, and again, it's with solemn pleasure that I was able to participate, and I'd like to thank Radio Sidney for giving us the opportunity to do this.
Absolutely. A big tip of the hat to Bill Collins and Mark, has been manning the cameras for us. Bit of a team effort. Peter brought in some technical support as well. It has been a real honor for both of us and all of the team here from Radio Sidney to bring you this broadcast. And until next time, we'll talk again soon.
Okay. Nobody likes a hot mic, though. Nobody likes a hot mic. By the way, there's still 2 left on the brick. That's not bad.